All right, welcome back YouTube people. Here we are today again doing another fit video. You may recognize the enormous human to my right. This is Max's YouTube channel. Link down below, up top somewhere. We'll put a link to your to your YouTube channel. Max does a lot of the chop ride videos. They're really good actually. Yeah,
Thanks,
I have admittedly watched one or two of them, I admit. So I'm a little bit starstruck today, people. Max has come in for a fit because he's absolutely crippled with pain and he needs my help. No, not really. He's got some mild knee pain from changing to some new shoes recently. He's never had a fit before, so this is going to be all news to you, I assume, what we're about to find. Max has got a little bit of medical history. Bone came out of your leg?
Yeah, when I was 16, bone came out of my leg.
They're not supposed to do that.
No, definitely not.
To stay inside.
And my mate actually tried to get me to stand up so the bone slid back into my leg.
Right, that doesn't sound very nice. So he has a compound fracture of his left tibia when he was about 16 and recently an elbow.
Yeah, recently an elbow from a chop ride. Someone fell in front of me, over the bars, flipped, and I put my hand out, so I got an outstretched hand fracture, which is an avulsion fracture.
Rookie mistake, mate. Never put the hand out.
Land straight on the shoulder, like you do in footy.
If it's one thing I've learned from Craig, it's that when you're crashing, don't let go of the bars as you go down. So we're going to fit Max here. Today he's got some new shoes, some new bonts to set up, which are replacing his old Shimano's, and I can already see he's mucked up the cleat position on one of these, and that's probably why his knee is hurting. So we'll have a look at all that now and see what we can find, mate.
Sounds good.
First,
let's get
we'll
into
look at you off the bike.
Yep.
Try and figure out if that leg is longer than the other one, which they usually are when you've had a compound fracture in the mid shaft of a tibia or a femur. So let's see. Hopefully we can find something interesting, mate.
Cool, sounds good.
Stand on your left leg for me, man, and lift your right knee up and down towards your chest. Sweet. Switch legs. Not so good on the left. Cool. All right. How flexible are you, Max?
Very flexible.
What? What are you, an ex-dancer or something?
No, I'm just really flexible.
Wow. Do you work at that, or is it just...
I stretch after every ride, but
you better stop. You better stop. You'll be able to fold yourself in half soon.
I've always been pretty flexible.
Mr. Origami. Holy hell. Wow. Oh, half your luck, Max. This is a very valuable trait as a cyclist. Wow, holy hell. Because this arch is higher than the other one, this foot is also shorter. So you can see the stagger in the metatarsal joint lines. It's about 6 millimeters, with the left one being further back. So that joint line in there that I got my fingernail in is definitely staggered, and the overall length of your feet, I don't know, 3-4 millimeters shorter on the left. So because this arch on the left one is higher, the foot is shorter. So you've got asymmetrical arches. Now, why is a good question. I will bet you it's because of this. Basically, when you did a big compound fracture there, the bone ended up longer than the other side. The way that this works is if you've got a massive tibia femur fracture, when it goes apart like this, and then yours actually penetrated the skin, didn't it? It came out. Disgusting. So as they do this, the surgeon later on comes and like yanks your leg back and like realigns them and then puts a plate across there, right? In the hours or days between those two things happening, the fracture and the surgical revision, there's a big, basically a big lump of congealed blood which sits in there, and it's bone marrow and blood and all this stuff. It sits in the space. So when the ends of the bone go back together, they stand off each other slightly by virtue of the big clot of blood that's sitting in there. That clot of blood then does something pretty cool. Basically, the red blood cells, they de-differentiate. So they turn back into a type of stem cell, and then they then turn back into bone cells. So the red blood cells become the new bone cells, which sounds crazy, but that's how bone healing works. Now, because there's a gap, you end up with standoff, the bone ends up longer.
Right.
And almost always, if it happens in your young years, like when you're like 10, 12, 14, or even 16, you were towards the end of your growth, but you probably still grew after that, the growth rate then remains the same, but the bone ends up 5-6 millimeters longer, which is exactly what yours is. Yours is like somewhere between 3 and 5 millimeters longer than the other one, we suspect. So yeah, it's a pretty classic thing when you've had a comminuted mid-shaft fracture of a big bone like that to get lengthening of the bone. Very occasionally they end up shorter, but almost always they end up longer. Yeah. So your general position, Max, needs a bit of work. There's a little bit of asymmetry. You do tend to drop your right hip forward like the tiniest amount. It's very, very small. That's not the big deal. The big thing is the seat height. It's really low. We've got to get it up. It's probably 15, maybe 20 millimeters too low. So we're going to move your seat up and forward. There's a lot of underextension of your legs. You'll be getting a lot of hamstring involvement across the bottom of the stroke without sort of giving you the full measure from your quads with this sort of a seat height. A tiny bit of asymmetry, as I said. With the bonce, you do tend to internally rotate your right foot on the pedal a little bit. Not sure exactly why that is, whether it's a situation to do with the arch support not being high enough or something like that. The cleats are further back on the bonce a little bit, could be messing you up, but almost invisible from the sides. But from the front, hopefully the split shot that we've got will show the little bit of asymmetry in the foot plant. And what's going on there is, as you're internally rotating your right foot, that's a symptom of dropping your right hip forward worse than the left one. So as your pelvis is going out of plane with the bike like that, it's just pushing your left knee away from the midline of the bike, and you're getting this asymmetrical positioning of your knees off the top tube, which is then just overloading the kneecap. It's just making your kneecap not track properly on the front of your knee. You're getting a little bit of pain down through the bottom here.
Correct,
from the new shoes. Yeah. So it'll be something to do with the setup of the orthotic or the cleat position, or potentially the wider sole plate of the shoe making your foot splay differently inside. So we'll fix all of that now, get that seat up, and hopefully we can find you some free watts, mate. This is a telltale. See these markings where Max's toes have been grabbing onto the orthotic? You can see the left one is obviously much more scuffed, where you've been clawing at the orthotic with all of your toes. This is a sign that there's a foot stability problem.
Right.
Yeah, you may not have symptoms like toe numbness and that sort of stuff and hot foot from this, but it is a sign that you are clawing at the orthotic. You're trying to scrunch your foot, using all of the intrinsic musculature on the bottom of your foot to try and subconsciously like stabilize your foot. This is always a sign that the seat is like way too high, or the arch support is insufficient, which it is in your case, or that the cleats are way too far forward. And it's neither of those two, it's the arch support for sure. Right. Yeah, so we need something a bit more substantial, I think. Nathan's orthotics here are lovely, but these ones aren't quite high enough. You can see, especially on this left foot, there is just daylight in here. It's not really doing much. The right one's closer to being okay, but still not okay. So we'll set you up with a set of G8s, mate, and we're gonna make these asymmetrical. So we'll probably try running a level 5 under your right foot and a level 5 with some extra lift, some extra EVA between the arch module and the orthotic for the left one. And hopefully we can get your feet like symmetrically stable. Yeah, see how we go. The right one should be fine. Stand up on these for me, Max. Yeah, so that right one is distorting just enough. Actually, you know what? The left one, when you put weight on it, it's actually pretty similar to the right. We might try these symmetrically and just see how they feel and how you function before we go and add more to the left one. Because when you've actually got weight on it, they're not that different. Yeah. Okay, cool. Have a seat again, man. That's the ones. All right, industry gripe number 800 million here from me. Wedge clamps with an obtuse engagement angle. And this is a classic example on this beautiful Villia that Max has got. The engagement angle of the screw is obviously pointing towards the seat post. So when you go to put your torque wrench on it, nowhere to put the torque wrench. So maybe let's refine that one, Mr. Villia, for next time. Now, the second thing we're going to do is we're going to move your seat forward, and we're going to change the angle of this saddle slightly. It's a bit on the nose up side. We're going to nose it down a little bit. Okay, spin it up, mate. Just a moderate pace. Good. So the seat still needs to come further forward, but that's closer. Max, I've just about nailed that seat height. It's almost perfect. It obviously feels quite different.
Yeah, it definitely feels quite different. I feel like I'm extending my leg. Obviously, I am a lot more.
Yeah, see, from the left, the seat still looks about 3 millimeters too low, and from the right, it looks almost perfect. So a good indicator that your left leg is actually longer than your right. Yeah.
You feel the arch support in there for sure.
Much more serious, isn't it? Yeah. It should feel like there's like really serious contact along the whole arch of your foot. Yeah, but that already looks much better from the front. He's not dropping his right hip as much. His right foot isn't internally rotating on the pedal as much. Looks much, much, much better. So that's a good start, mate. As I expected, most of that is from the arch support. I suspected it was a foot stability issue. The next thing we got to do is get rid of the last bit of it because there's still a bit of it left. And what will be happening here is the way that you're compensating is because your right leg, which is shorter, is your neurologically dominant leg, your central nervous system is tilting your pelvis very slightly down and forward on the right to basically shorten the reach to the cranks to accommodate your right leg, which is shorter, right? So by going out a plane with the bike, the right knee ends up a bit closer to the top tube and the left one goes further away and your foot angles end up slightly skewed, yeah. So let's fix that now. We've got to pull the seat up another 3 mil and then we're going to shim your right foot, Max. Come and have a seat. I'm also going to move the seat even further forward. You're going to be absolutely on the limit here. So one of the strange things about this bike, we've basically got Max's seat as far forward as we can get it on the rails. It's pretty much maxed out here and it's only just far enough forward. Max has got 2 things against him. Number one, this bike has a very slack seat angle. This is a double XL Volante, so the seat angle is 72.5 degrees, which means that the layback of this post is moving the seat rearwards as it goes up a lot. And we've got huge amounts of seat post out of the frame because your legs are so long, Max. And so we've ended up in a situation here where we've got the seat as far forward as it can possibly go, and you may still want to get it even further forward than this. If Villiers makes a 0 offset seat post for this bike, we'll have to look it up. We might want to get one of those so that you can clamp it more centrally in the rail, and also you can start experimenting with even further forward saddle positions than this, yeah. If Villiers doesn't do it, Darimo, the Spanish company, they will make one for this, no doubt. So 2 2mm shims. Yep, they just go under the cleat like this. And we're going to use some slightly longer fasteners to hold them on. Oh, we already did 26. So we're going to end up at around 29mm higher. So yeah, let's call it 3 centimeters max.
So is that a telling sign that this bike also could potentially be too small for me?
You could definitely go up a size if they made a bigger one, without a doubt in the world. That'd be no problem.
I used to have a Canyon Air Road in a 61.
Yep.
I got rid of that and basically went onto this.
What's the difference in the geometry?
I mean, that's a good question, but the Air Road had 160 cranks on it.
That would have been weird for you.
Yeah, it was very, very weird.
Yeah.
Big change to this.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, look, you're a good candidate for like 180s. If you ever wanted to try 180s or even 185s. Like your seat height is going to be 860. Yeah, like that's a lot. So you could be like a very good candidate for trying 180s if you ever wanted to do some experimentation. That's better. The further forward you come, the better you look. Flattening off a little bit of this rounding that you had through here. The bars are a little bit on the low side.
Yep.
Which is a bit of a bummer because there's no way we can come up. Okay, so your glute engagement is much more symmetrical with the shim there, and there's no obliquity in your pelvis anymore at all. That looks pretty neat from behind. The leg extension looks very, very, very even like that as well. Does it feel different with the shim?
Yeah, it definitely feels different.
Good. So we've got a 4mm shim underneath Max's right foot, taking a bit of a guess at his leg length difference, and this looks really, really neat. You can see his foot plant on the pedal is much more symmetrical. The gap between the top tube and the knees is much more symmetrical, and his pelvis, as viewed from above and behind, is really, really square to the bike. From all directions, he looks pretty even. So this is getting pretty good now. Anything we improve on from here with your symmetry is like a real bonus. If we can get it any better than this, it's been a good day. Yeah, they're big suckers. Yeah, you've got your hoods about 40 centimeters apart at the moment, which means theoretically, if you're having no trouble with this when your hands are placed on it, theoretically you could get away with a pair of 40s with the hoods straight and it'd be kind of the same. But I suspect with your level of mobility and your ligaments and so forth and your shoulders and all through your body, a set of 40s with the hoods turned in to about 38, free speed, man. Yeah, it is pretty long now that I look at it again. Your tendency is to gravitate your hand back off the hood all the time. I kind of
sit like this a lot of the time when I'm riding.
Yeah.
Because if I'm like this, I just feel like I'm a bit stretched out. But if I'm riding behind people, I'll sit like this.
Yeah, what you'll find is it'll be perfectly fine at really high speed when you're tucked down trying to get out of the wind. But when you're cruising along in zone 2, 3 and you're constantly sitting back there, it means it's a bit on the long side. I would probably say it's 20 mil longer than I would have it. I'd probably think a 120 is going to be where you want it. So your hood's going to sit kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can just see your elbow starting to bend and a little bit of more neutral shoulder posture when you're like that. You'll still be able to tuck down low and get out when the going gets tough, but it just won't be so stretched out. So we priced up a Villiers cockpit for this. Max told me they're $1,500. Welcome to the world of integration, people. A lot of lovely bar, but yeah, not on the cheap side. So this one's about 2 centimeters longer than we want it to be. Max keeps subconsciously moving his hands back off the hoods all the time. It is a bit stretched out. We've moved the seat forward 20 odd millimeters, 25 millimeters, and even now it's still too long. So you've got a difficult decision to make, mate. Do we buy the Villiers one and mortgage your kidney or whatever you want to do? You can sometimes run them shorter because your hands can move in an arc, and they'll like the distance from the center of your shoulder out to the bar is going to remain kind of the same.
Yep.
So if the bars are too low and there's nothing you can do about it without buying a new fork, one trick is to run the reach a little bit shorter so that your hand is basically moving in an arc back and down towards you, and you'll get away with more drop with a shorter reach, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
So a 20...
it'd more be like this as opposed to me out here, right?
Yes. Yeah. Shorter and lower instead of longer and higher. Yeah, so I'd probably say a 120 max. The frame is at least the right size, but you could, on your next bike, a lot of the dimensions on the frame could be larger. This is the biggest one that Villiers does, but you know, we could have a taller head tube and run a single 10mm spacer on it and it'd be a little bit higher. We could just, if the bike was a little bit longer, you could just run a 110 instead of the 120. No problems. Yeah. So next time we're going to find you something bigger.
Yep.
Sucks being tall. I am going to increase the height of that shim by 1 millimeter, I think. It just looks a little on edge from the right. We'll try it at 5 millimeters and just see if it's any better. That is better. So there must be 5 millimeters in it, Max. Not 4. Yeah, see now there's no suggestion that that right leg is doing something different to the left. It just looks absolutely even. Can you tell the difference between 4 and 5 millimeters? No.
No, I don't think so.
Cool. I can at least. The last thing I'm going to get you to do is work hard for a couple of minutes. So what we're going to do is increase the load. Just bring it up to like a FTP style load. Just do it by feel. Don't worry about holding a specific number or anything. And just hold it for a couple of minutes. There's still something wrong with that right foot, Max. But even with the leg extension and everything being perfect, that foot is still inverting on the pedal. So we're missing something here. It's got to be something to do with the arch support or the wedging underneath that right foot. So that was the one that you sprained, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Quite badly?
Yeah, quite a long time ago, but I never had it looked at.
Yep. Yeah, see, under heavy load, you just drop that hip forward. It looks good under light load, but at very heavy load, it's not quite right. Okay, ease it back off again. Let's try wedging the heel. So Max has got a little bit of right hip drop that's still creeping in when the load goes right up. So when he's pedaling at a FTP, or you know, Max's threshold's about 500 or 600 watts. So when he's pedaling really, really hard, his right foot tends to invert on the pedal. It internally rotates, and he just drops his right hip forward a little bit. It's invisible at light load, so we've got him looking really good at like 200-300 watts, but as the load goes up, he starts going a little bit out of plane. So we've tested a lot of things here. We've changed the height of the shim. We've staggered his cleat position to suit his 2 different size feet. The last thing we're going to try is wedging his heel. Max had an old bad sprain on this right ankle a long time ago, and sometimes this tendency to internally rotate the foot is a lack of foot stability on the pedal, and it can come from ligament damage in the back half of the ankle. Some of our previous foot fit videos that we've done with Nicole and with Richard, I think it was, there was a fair bit of wedging talk. Max doesn't need as much, because his foot's not that weird, but this might be the last piece of the puzzle, Matt. Let's see if we're right about this. It could also be an ingrained motor pattern. It could be that you've been riding like that at a very low level because you've been riding for a couple of years with a shorter right leg compensating for it. So it could be just ingrained patterning that you've been left with. That's it, 2 degrees of wedging. Wow, that's really good. So I'm going to show you guys just how critical wedging can be. This is an extremely subtle wedge here. What we're going to do is we're going to use 2 1-degree heel wedges. So these are basically going to sit underneath Max's orthotic here, the G8 at the rear with the thick side towards the arch of the shoe. 2 degrees. It doesn't sound like much and it doesn't look like much, but we've got some before footage of Max pedaling at a slightly above his threshold or so, and you can just see his pelvis starting to drop forward on the right side at that heavier level of load. With 2 degrees of heel wedging in, hopefully this will show up on the video, but he is much more square under that heavier load. So that's the last piece of the puzzle, man. Now you look good, with the exception of that reach.
Yeah.
Yeah, consider your options with that. All right, we finished up with Max here. We changed quite a lot. Max, what did you get out of that process?
I got that my bike fit was pretty terrible, to be honest, and my seat height was drastically low. My knees don't really work very well on the bike and they tend to pivot in a little bit. I need to have a shim under my foot because my legs are different length.
You're a bit wonky.
Yeah, a lot that I didn't realise, to be honest.
I was dreading that Max was going to come in today and we wouldn't find much to change and this would be a pretty boring video. There's actually quite a lot there. So his seats come up like 30 millimeters. There's a 5 millimeter shim underneath his right foot. He's got 2 degrees of heel wedging under his right foot, which is really important. It actually helps with the last little bit of your symmetry. And we've got to get a 20 millimeter shorter cockpit on this bike as well. So that's going to be a bit of an expensive endeavor for Max to think about afterwards. But the 140 by 44 that's on this at the moment is just enormous, and it's too big even for you. The seat went forward 25 millimeters. Yeah, lots of changes, mate.
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
And I actually thought that my fit was pretty good, so it's quite funny.
You never know what you don't know, mate.
No.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for allowing us to film this. And Max is going to do a follow-up on his channel. And when that's up, we will hopefully be able to cross-link between the two. And if you subscribe to us, you should subscribe to Max's channel as well, because he's got some good content on there. He rides a lot more than we do. We just talk a lot and faff around. But Max actually rides his bike. So get on there and watch that, guys. We'll see you in the next Fit video.